Hello everyone, it's an honor to be part of the Delphi Forum. Today I'm here with Alex Fotakidis, partner and head of Greece of CVC Capital Partners, a global investment fund with 25 offices globally. We are happy to be here in their latest office, which is in Athens. We are doing this interview from their office here, which opened a few weeks ago. CVC has 100 billion assets under management, and in Greece it's been very active. It's one of the most active and biggest foreign investors in the country since 2016 in areas as e-commerce, healthcare, food business, insurances, infrastructure. So I think it will be a very interesting conversation that we're going to have with Alex today. So Alex, you've been one of the biggest investors in the country. Foreign investors. I wanted to ask you, what do you think are the prospects of the country in the next 3 years?
Hi, Eleni. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be with you today. It's a pleasure to host you at our new offices. One of the first guests. We opened in April, as you said, and actually, I'm not here alone. We had a managing director join last week, Kostis Rokas, Yale and HBS educated, 15 years of private equity and banking consulting experience. Has recently moved to Athens to work alongside me on our projects, and we hope to further build out the team in the next few months. So it's great to be here, and I think one of the reasons it's great to be here is because the prospects for investing and the prospects for the country in the next 3 years, in my view, are excellent, both on a macro level and on a micro level. When you look at it, and we look at it as a matrix, on a macro level, when you look at the size of the EU Recovery Fund and the initiatives that are in the key pillars of sustainability, digital infrastructure and transformation, and they cover most of the economy, and in the sectors that we are investing in, that will really help on a macro level. On the sector side, I see good prospects for growth in healthcare services, pharma, technology, e-commerce, FMCG for sure, particularly food and beverage, branded food and beverage, especially as we expand the market into organic products, plant-based products as well. Energy, particularly renewable energy and storage. Also, all of the logistics around transporting energy, I think are interesting for the country. Of course, hospitality, such an important part of the economy, and I think that in particular at the high end, hospitality, there's room to grow, and there's an opportunity for institutional investors to support that growth. And finally, services. When you look at services generally, whether it's IT services, payments, insurance, telephony, 5G, all those areas, I think are ripe now for growth. So we expect to be really busy for the next 3 or 4 years. We've been busy the last 4 years, and we don't expect that to change.
Okay, that sounds very optimistic, that you have all these areas that you see potential growth in the country. But at the same time, Greece is coming out from the pandemic with the highest debt in the Eurozone and one of the highest deficits. So is that something that worries you? And what would be the first steps that you would like to see from the Greek government in the coming months?
We clearly regularly monitor fiscal policy, but I think the key element is not the quantum of debt, but it's the sustainability of Greece's debt. And importantly, when you look at the maturity profile and you look at the cost of capital, and the cash flows that we expect, the cash flows that the country has, actually, the debt that Greece has is sustainable and serviceable. Almost, you've got to look at the country as a balance sheet and cash flow, and you look at all of the reprofiling that's taken place in the last, I would say, 4 or 5 years, the reduction in the cost of capital, pushing out maturities. Actually, when we look at the next 10 years on a balance sheet basis for the country, we think the debt profile is sustainable. And I think from a government perspective, the government has taken all the right steps before, during, and hopefully after the pandemic. And if you look at the last 3 years, 2019 was a year of reform and growth. 2020 was a year of resilience and successful crisis management. And hopefully 2021 will be a year of recovery and a repositioning for growth. I mean, when we did recently a market mapping exercise, and we have identified at least 25 companies in Greece who could and should have international institutional investors to help them grow.
Being active in the country and having bought big companies, I want to ask you, what are the biggest obstacles you have faced up to now? I mean, would it be something in the tax system, judicially, or corruption? What would you say actually to a foreign investor who wants to come to Greece, based on your experience?
Well, currently, the greatest obstacle I have is actually working out how I can cycle from my house to the office and
That's a big problem, actually. You're right.
and get there safely. It's actually one of the few things London was better for than in Athens. I'm incredibly happy to be in Athens, but I do miss not being able to cycle to work. But on a more serious note, the greatest problem wasn't actually here. The greatest obstacle was convincing our investment committee, our board, and why should we invest in Greece back in 2016. And actually, when I was checking the data this morning, back in September 2016, the Greek government bond yield was 8.5%, and today it's 1%. So the country has de-risked significantly, and that's reflected in those yields. It's reflected in the ratings upgrades from S&P and Moody's. It's also reflected in the huge demand that we have from international investors for Greek government bonds. When you look at the last few issuances, the amount of demand and the cost of capital. So actually, the most difficult obstacle was back then was why invest? And I think now, though, the country is positioned to attract foreign investment. I think all the right steps have been taken on a political, legal, and tax basis. I think it's important. What is really important is you need to have good local advisors. You need to have lawyers and accountants and consultants who understand the market and who will advise and guide you to avoid problems, or at least be aware of the problems that you might have. For example, if there's any litigation that you need to manage. But most importantly, also, I think you need to have the right managers. And we have been laser focused in working with the best talent locally. And I'm proud to say that in all of our portfolio companies, the quality of the management teams, both at the C-suite, but even at levels 1 and 2 below, is exceptional. And so it makes my job more simple, but it also makes it more rewarding and more interesting.
Okay, the risk of the country might be out of the map at the moment, but that doesn't mean that the country is very friendly to investments. What would you like to see changing in the country that would actually attract foreign investors?
I think that the only problematic aspect, which I think is quite important because it covers a significant part of the economy, is that privatization processes are too complicated and too long. And I think that could result in a suboptimal outcome for the country. So I think, and I don't think, by the way, there isn't an easy solution to this problem. So it's not a criticism of the country. It's more that because we're in the process where we are privatizing assets, I think we have to work together with investors and maybe also with the EU bodies to find a way to make those processes more investor friendly so that the outcome is actually optimal for the government. I think this government, has, apart from IQ and EQ, has also displayed, in particular in the last 12 months, strong AQ. What do I mean by AQ? I mean adaptability. The government has adapted, and I think as it's looked to reform and it looks to adapt, we could look at the privatization process and see how we can make it more friendly for a better outcome for both sides.
If there was one advice, what would that be in order to make it more friendly?
I think we need to be more disciplined on timing and not to have delays. So when we go out and say, this is the timetable, we're starting a process in X month, and have a clear timetable as to when you're going to bid and when you're actually going to sign, I think that's really important. I've seen several processes where there have been delays, which probably could have been avoided. And actually, that means you might also lose a market window, you might lose several investors, and it could result in an outcome that either is a failure or a result that isn't desirable.
CVC has been doing business in 24 other countries, and I was wondering if you could give us a comparison with Greece. I mean, if there's one thing that sticks out in Greece that you haven't seen in other countries, what would that be?
I think, and I've had the opportunity in the 15 years that I've been at CVC, I've had the opportunity to work across Europe, the Americas, and even Asia. And it's easy for me to compare doing business in Greece with doing business in other countries. And actually, based on our experience the last 4 or 5 years, I would actually put Greece in the top quartile in terms of doing business. The way we've been able to structure our investments, the way we've worked with all the professional services here, as I said, law firms, accountants, consultants, quality of management, we've been able to do all the work that we normally need to do in terms of diligencing the market, the company, in terms of preparing the business plan. Actually, I would put it in the top 25%, which I think is which is a reflection of the positive steps we've taken. The problem is that we are a small country and we are a small economy, and I think we have to work together. I think in order to create, for example, export opportunities, we need to have strong groups such that they can make investments and can attack markets in the US and Europe and the US. We need to have sizable players to be able to be competitive on an international scale. And hopefully, as institutional investors, we can help these markets evolve and grow, both locally and internationally.
And one very quick question and answer, because we don't have much more time. Do you see a problem with the brain drain? Do you have a problem in hiring young people who are super qualified? Do you see that this is a problem in the country in the last years?
It has been a problem, for sure. And actually, the other way you could look at it, Eleni, is actually our best export the last 10 years has been people. If you think about all the people who have gone and worked abroad. However, what I've seen in the last 12 months, and as we've been recruiting for the office here in Athens, and also recruiting for the portfolio company, there is a strong reversal of that trend. So I'm actually experiencing a brain gain now across the portfolio. As I said at the start, I'm delighted to have Kosti join us. He's got a world-class track record, and that means that we'll be able to work on even more projects here, and we want to build out the team. And if you ask him today why he did it, why did he leave London after 15 years, I think he was attracted by the prospects of working for an international institutional investor, but also being able to actually make a difference in Greece. So I think the stars are aligned.
Okay, on that very positive note, we will have to end this conversation. It was a pleasure, Alex, meeting you and being in your offices. I wish you all the best with your new endeavors, and
Thank you.
yeah, hope to see how this office is going to expand in the next years.
Thank you.